Boom. Whatever you want, man.
Is it recording already?
It's
Cool.
recording.
Let me just chop it up.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Know Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Vipul Basania, and today's guest is Adam Lewis Walker. Now, this is a special episode because this is the weekend of Thrive. We literally met yesterday and we got on straight away just because of the sort of stuff that he was doing, where he was heading, and my mission as well. So he's a TEDx speaker, author of this book, Awaken Your Alpha, and also the host of the podcast, Awaken Your Alpha, as well as coaching clients as well. So thanks for taking the time to do this, man.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So first things first, Awaken Your Alpha. Where's that name come from? What's
Yeah, good call. So you kind of touched on it. Yeah, the podcast, Awaken Your Alpha, is 4.5 years old in podcast terms. That's like an old one.
Yeah.
That's like a podcast veteran. I found out once you go past like 3 years or so.
Yeah.
I think the average the average podcast is 9 episodes and then kind of peters out. So once you get past 9, you're right. So it's 326 episodes.
I didn't know that. That's quite cool to know.
Yeah,
I'm on 60, so I'm hoping I'm picking up some momentum now.
Yeah, so 326 episodes. And so Awaken Your Alpha, the name really for that came from, I co-authored a book in 2013. We was just talking about it on the way up, and it was interesting. The people in that book had nothing in common. It was quite a mishmash. So it could be me from England, former teacher, strength and conditioning coach, and then a dentist from Texas who's 60. And so you think, then when I met up with the people in the book, we were having these conversations, very casual, and I was just it just felt so natural, and someone you don't think you've got anything in common with. You literally, it's the mindset and just the attitude to life and achievement and fulfillment and just thriving. And I'm like, there's something in this. So I hadn't had, and it was very international. It wasn't I thought at the time there was a lot of podcasts that were Americans interviewing Americans, saying it's the world podcast, which is America. So I thought it was important as an English guy to do my take on it, but also my fundamentals were, I want to hear from Americans, but I want to hear from English. I want to hear from Africans. I want to hear from Australians. I want to have that universe, just people all over the world, and just connected by that kind of attitude to get better, to strive, to improve, and just the pursuit of the alpha, and whatever that means to you. It's the alpha is from the solar system. The definition is the star that shines the brightest. From the animal kingdom, it's the animal that achieved the highest rank. So it's about to achieve the highest rank in areas of your life that are important to you. To shine bright is not to put others in your shadow, but to illuminate. So that's kind of the fundamentals of that. And the book as well is, always knew it was going to be a book. So the podcast was kind of like an elaborate research project. And so I pulled the trigger on that. I did a TEDx talk as you mentioned, in 2016, so about 2 years ago. And that kind of set the fundamentals of the foundation for the book, which is awareness, action, and ascension, which is ultimately, if you want to keep it simple, I think that's essential to thrive in life. And it's not 1, 2, 3 done. It's a continual reassessing where you are, your awareness. Awaken Your Alpha is something like washing. You don't just do it once and leave it. It's a daily thing, and I think that's really important.
No, I love that. No, and it's interesting because some of the things you were saying about alpha, with me, it's I talk about the same thing with my audience, and it's about becoming a legend in your space.
Love it.
And we all have, from what you're talking about here, Awaken Your Alpha. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're implying there the alpha's already inside you. You just need to awaken it. It's not you're not creating it. You need to awaken it. When you're sleeping, your body doesn't go anywhere, it's there, and then you just arise in the morning. You don't change beds, you're still in the same place. And so, I call it inner legend. And so I'm interested to know, before you coming up with the idea of awakening the alpha and everything that you talked about, starting the podcast, interviewing people, and then, eventually writing the book, what was your life like prior to that? Because you touched on being a school teacher, and obviously we haven't spoken about your life back then, but it's interesting because I think it's important for people to see where you've come from so that they understand your journey and how they can relate.
Yeah. So through and through, I love to teach. I love. I'm not against in terms of I'm done teaching. I want to get out of the profession. It was the restrictions like I love working with young people. I love, with that spark when you just say a certain thing in a certain way, and you can see the light bulb go off. And I think that's important for different messengers. Even if we said exactly the same thing word for word, which I know we wouldn't because we're different, someone's gonna just relate to you in a different way because it's that position of influence. And I think that's important. And ultimately, if there was a curriculum that was a lot more open, less restrictive, and if they literally had, what do you teach? Success in schools. Completely honestly, I'll still be there. I think.
Yeah.
And it was, I did within that restrictions. You've like, break them, but that is a confined curriculum on purpose, and it was that restriction that ultimately it's like I want to keep doing this, but I want to teach my curriculum or an open curriculum, an evolving curriculum, because the nature of teaching is even if you're teaching something new, okay, they don't want it to evolve because you set this was good this week or this month. Say you're doing something new, okay, set it all out. Brilliant, this is great. Don't change it. And the nature of Awaken Your Alpha and what we're talking about, and it's personal development in any shape, is continual improvement. So once you fix a curriculum, even if you have a better idea, yeah, you can. There's flexibility sometimes in how you teach it, but it was that restrictive nature that and also, I mean, in a very purely to my situation as a physical education teacher, and the route to high performance, if that was your career, always was kind of moving up the ladder, less and less boots on the ground in terms of physically teaching PE. It was start wearing suits more, start becoming more senior management. That a lot of, and again, there's nothing against that, but I think it's important to know what you do and don't like. Like if I'd have liked that and that appealed to me, fine, but I did not. And what I was there teaching, the reason I was there for, that's what I liked, and I wanted to progress. And it was kind of, if you want to progress more, it was like less teaching and more going into senior management type roles, and that wasn't my bag. And I was especially the lifestyle of a PE teacher. I was a semi-professional athlete. I was a pole vaulter, and I was attempting to get to the Olympics. That was kind of all my energy, and the fact you get summers off as a teacher. Yeah. I've always been attracted to lifestyle, and so that worked perfectly for athletics. To cut a long story short, and we can dig into it as much or as little as you want. 2008, I've been coming back from a torn groin at 21, and it was obviously Olympic year, but really thinking of further down the line. I got my first personal best in 7 years. So I was 28, entering my prime for a pole vault, maybe 28 to 32, and UK Challenge final, English summer, so obviously horizontal rain, and lost perspective and just tunnel vision in a good way, but also you think you're invincible a bit sometimes until you've had a real big fall. And I'd had some struggles, but I'd never had any knee problems. Slipped on takeoff, tore my ACL, dislocated the kneecap, tore the meniscus cartilage off the bones, bruised the bones in one go, and it was like literally someone just taking your leg and just snapping it. And again, long story short, that was the end of pole vault. From I was a pole vaulter up to a 28. That was my identity as a man. That I associated, a lot of my ego, any success was all I was introduced. Oh, he's a pole vaulter. It was so wrapped up in that. After that point, what followed from there was really 2 years, not 2 years of full depression. The reality is, it took me about a year to get down that low, like in denial kind of thing, the shock factor. And I'm like, you see, I'm quite an upbeat guy. You wouldn't have told it on the surface because I'm like, I'm gonna, get through this, but slowly, and that's what it felt, just a slow, just getting down there, lower and lower. Unfortunately, you hit rock bottom, and it was through that period of sort of 2 years or so. And again, it wasn't a quick turnaround. It took as long to get out as it did to get down there. That was really where I had to, this is what sometimes you have to literally battle. Literally fight each day to awaken your alpha, and that's what it felt like. It was, it's a struggle, it's tough, but I think if you're just getting they talk about 1% better if you're trying to get high performance, but when you're down low in the crap, that is it just, it's even more important, I think. So that's what it was, just baby steps coming out of that, and that's through some of the stuff I went through. What worked for me doesn't work for other people, but in an interview, I'm very that's close to home, that kind of. So whenever I interview people, I do ask about that stuff, not just thriving, but when's a bad time and what did they, how did they get out of that, and any tactics or anything we can learn from that.
Yes, definitely, and I think the fact that you highlight that in others shows that obviously you respect the fact that failure is as important as is to be successful, because that's where your character is ultimately shaped to be able to handle the success that follows thereafter. So at that point, when you were going down for that year, I'm assuming you weren't working?
So yeah, it really was a perfect storm of because I was straddling entrepreneurship and teaching. I made the decision, but I was, I always had a good plan B. You're never going to go hungry as a teacher, especially if you're a good teacher. There's always demand. So I was part-time teaching, had my business on the side. It was like a youth strength and conditioning sports speed academy back then, and I just timing couldn't have been worse. I just handed a notice to my job over the summer, because you have to do quite a lot in advance. So I knew coming September I was all in on the business. The accident happened in the August, in the summer break. So if I hadn't turned in my notice, I would have literally been, with something like that, I would have been, paid off sick for ages. I would just handed everything in. Then the knee happened. The business stumbled a bit. And this is another thing, taken for granted. I'm a very physical person. All my teaching, everything was attached to my physicality, and that got taken away. So in terms of growth, like looking back and the story of your life, as most people's, it strengthened me, but at the time it's absolute crap. It's not good. It's not fun. But because then I couldn't rely on being, the physical guy. My knee was completely screwed, and at the time, people let you down. I didn't have the infrastructure of the coaches who were working with me and for me. It was a job, and a good coach is really hard to find, which it really showed in that period. Like I'm on crutches, and it got to the point in terms of I was getting lower, that I didn't like the standards and people letting people down. So it was still going well, and I just pulled the plug. And I think sometimes when you're feeling really crappy, you just want to just throw it all in. And so I was like, it's hard to help others when you've got nothing to give yourself, and it got to that point, like I had nothing to give. So I didn't want to be a disservice to people. So I pulled the plug while it was still going quite well, just because I wanted to be done with it. I needed to sort myself out, and I was feeling pretty low. So that took a while, and it was I was literally a professional. I'd say a professional rehab for 2 years, because it was 3 operations in 2 years on crutches. Like in the build up to an operation, after an operation, I was on a mission to get better, and I hated the swimming pool for a long time, because I was in there every day doing my rehab before operations to get it as strong as I can going into it, and then after operations I couldn't drive for a long period. Like you say, everyone else was at work and doing their things, and I'm at home just lost, just not good.
So you attach your identity to being physically fit and training others, but then when something like that happens, what do you then attach your identity to get yourself through that? Because as you said, you're feeling lost, so how do you find yourself again?
This is the problem. I attach my identity too much to these things, like this status, or and the physicality, and I didn't have the mental strength, because everyone's had adversities, but nothing to that level. So it exposed a huge weakness. And sometimes you talk about, you can have weaknesses and you can leave them, and you don't need to focus on your weaknesses. I think it's important to go all in on your strengths. But when your weakness is ultimately showed out there, like a mental weakness, that is essential. You can't say, oh, don't worry about that, I'll focus on up until that point, the physicality. And I was mentally strong, just I hadn't been tested to that level. So, and the honest answer, as I say, there was no, I'm going to that was the issue. I was right down there, and it took to, and I was in denial as well, because the outward appearance, and everyone, you're taking it so well, and blah, 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 and And I had that kind of persona, and I was trying to not just, it wasn't for other people, for myself. I was trying to almost put a mask on and get through it like that, but behind it was just slowly being harder and harder just to be normal and have a conversation. I think the real alarm bells for me, I'm a big movie, I love my movies, and sometimes that that escapism, watch a movie, just relax, enjoy it. At the lowest, I couldn't even watch a movie and enjoy it. I was that messed up mentally. It felt like there was no mental break, and I hit the lowest of the low. And when I hit the lowest of the low and literally broke down, and my mum came around, I was just a mess in the middle of the day when everyone's doing their life, and I'm just physically and mentally a mess. That was ground zero. From that point, once I just a helpless state, and there's no denial there. From that day, again, very slowly, but started getting building things up. But yeah, and it's when in terms of tales and tactics to thrive, and things and strategies, things you should be doing to make yourself more resilient to the potential of depression, or if you are feeling like crap. When you're feeling like crap, that's not the time to start trying to learn this stuff, because that's when you don't feel like doing any of it the most. And I think if anyone thinks they're immune to it, they're being a bit arrogant. I think some people are more susceptible than others, definitely, granted, but I do think given the right or the wrong set of circumstances, a few key events that can hit anyone at a certain time, I think we can all think of something that could happen that would make it very mentally challenging, and you never know till you go through that. So I think it's important to see the warning signs early and be very proactive with your mental health. And a lot of people, once you get up to from literally not surviving to struggling, and then to okay, I'm okay, a lot of people stop what got them there, and then that's a cycle, and then you stop doing the habits and things that got you there, and then you go back down to I'm really in the crap now. Then you get up to it, and that's why it's continuing that to then get to thriving, because a lot of people then get to that and think, this is pretty, I'm good, I get comfy, get complacent, so I think that's important. This is it's not just about things to get you out of when times are tough. It's about you continuing, we're here to thrive. I truly believe that, and that's what's in this book. And again, if you don't relate to this, the whole point of this is, as I say, there's people in here that inspire me and their stories. There'd be at least one, but I would say it'd be a higher percentage. You're going to, and you think, I see myself in that. There's always someone who's gone through something worse than you. Not to say, that means you should just suck it up, because whatever you're going through, if that's the worst thing you've gone through, that is the worst thing you've gone through. I'm telling myself at the time, I'm not dying. I'm not got a life-threatening disease. It's my knee, but when that's your world and it gets taken away with no warning, that's your world. That's the worst thing that happened to me. So it's easy to say, perspective, but when if that's the worst thing that's happened to you, then that's the biggest challenge for you at that time. But it's
It seems like you've been through quite an emotional journey as well as physical, to try and recalibrate what was going on inside. So is there anything that you wish you could have done or should have done earlier mentally to stop yourself going that far down at that period of time?
Yeah, we touched it there, and I mean, it's the denial thing. I think it's a man kind of, I don't know if it's an English thing more and more. It's just not admitting it to yourself, not talking about it. I'm good. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I got this kind of.
So just to break it down, sorry to cut you off there, but
no.
Just so it's very clear for them. When you say denial of what? What are you trying to suppress for you specifically, just so they understand?
Yeah. So there's a difference between I'm having a bad day, everyone has bad days now and then. When you can't remember the last time you had a good day, that's not okay. I was going to say normal, but who cares about normal? Normal is a horrible word. So that's not okay. That's not, I'm a bit down. That is, if you can't remember the last time you had a good day or felt happy, or if it's a struggle to have basic conversations, just to be, like you say, normal. And yeah, it's I would have again, but it's tricky because when you're there, the whole point is you don't feel like doing certain things, you know. So what I do now, I have a huge respect for it, and I catch the warning signs like earlier. As I said, I don't think anyone's completely immune for it. You can catch warning signs earlier now, and that's why I think it's so important to thrive, because thriving is a long way away from down in the dumps like ground zero. So that's a long way, and as I say, it can go quickly, but I think there's warning signs that people can miss. Like say when you're, okay, I'm feeling a bit down, okay, we can deal with that, but everyone has the ability to come back, but the reality is the further down you go, the longer it will take, and the more work you've got to do. So I think it's, if you can catch this stuff early, but again, as a man, especially back then, just thought I could, push through without dealing with it. And yeah, so there you go.
Because I've been through, like, some of my audience knows, like, I went through my own personal journey, like having like severe health issues, and I was just like devastated by it because I didn't want to accept it. And it got to a point where I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I'm just like, I don't want to even see like what my face looks like right now, because I want to forget that it's even happening. I want to pretend it's not even there. And then you go down this whole path. I don't know if you can share this, but you go down this whole path of being angry, almost like it's like, why is this happening to me? But then it's like, want to ignore it at the same time, but at the back of your mind, it's there, you can't really do anything about it, so you have all this internal anger. But then when you speak to someone, it's cool, you put up this front. So I don't know if that was part of your journey at any point.
Yeah, in terms of like, vicious cycles and positive cycles and compound interest, everything you do is trying to maintain is the worst mistake ever. We can't maintain. You're either growing or you're dying, and so the actions you're doing are either making you slightly better, or by inaction or whatever you want to call it, or doing actions that are not helping you, that compounds as well. And I think the thing you're talking about, getting angry and beating yourself up, like I'm thinking, this, I'm mentally strong, this shouldn't happen, it shouldn't happen to me. So it's denying yourself, and also I did have the perspective like, I'm not dying, no one in my family is dying, there's a lot worse things happening to other people in the world. So I felt embarrassed that I was basically in my head, and this is not other people, this is me, I was talking to myself, and again, this is negative, so it just makes it worse. Why am I being such a pussy? Like, what? Like, I have no right. So I was embarrassed, which made me feel like shit even more. So then you go, okay, it's just that cycle, and I felt worse and worse, and I don't want anyone to know about it. I only ever talked about it after. So, I mean, if you could talk about it when you're down in it, I think that would help you come out of it. I can do that. So, I mean, I talk about it now because I think it will help someone going through it as well. And just in the book, someone who knew me at the period I talk about in the book was actually on the Great Britain sitting volleyball team with me. And they said to me, and I thought they kind of knew stuff, and they said to me, like literally, mark the pace. I did not know. I always thought he literally knew me at the period I'm talking about. No idea. And this is the thing about, well, all people, but the male suicide rate in the UK is 3 to 1 to women in comparison. It's that suffering in silence. Yeah. Like it's always that high profile person who takes their life and everyone's like, whoa, I had no idea if they'd just said something. So, there's a lot of it goes on, and I think, if one, we've got to talk about it, especially guys. So I think, because unfortunately you can get as low as you can want, whatever, as low as you have to, you can always come back so long as you don't take that step, which I don't know if it, again, I wouldn't say lucky, but that never crossed my mind, thank God. But and I have no idea why, but I know that does for other people when they might not be as low as me or lower than me. I don't know, it's a personal thing, and thank God, because there's no coming back from that.
Yeah. And you're right, about the suicide thing. It's quite a big thing on social media, I think, recently as well, because of the male ego, whatever it is. It's just difficult for them to talk about their feelings, and so it's not the norm in society. And I think different people are trying to break that now, like yourself. But how do you go from not being able to talk about it, being in that state, to then eventually, doing a TEDx talk and writing a book, basically around that empowering message? What was the tweak or the transition or the whatever you want to call it that helped you open up?
I think, as I say, I do not believe, I like literally talk about it as almost like 8 years clear type thing. Like, it's not like I've beaten it. No, it's like anything. If you like lose it or use it or lose it mentally and everything, if you don't respect it, and I say, so I have a healthy respect for, you know, depression and going, so I wouldn't be so arrogant to think I've beaten it and then, you know, that's that. It's like anything. It's like, why, you know, for like motivation, you don't do it once that I've done that. Oh, I woke in my alpha last week, I'm good. It's a daily thing, and that's what's really important. Through all of this, it is a daily thing, and more and more with, you know, I'm very aware of mortality, and so every day, I think an important question, and it takes your mindset away from struggling and just surviving to thriving. What could you do today to make today great? Regardless of your circumstance, what one thing, if you have the worst day ever, what one thing could you do that can make, not tomorrow, okay, I had a bad day, I'm going to make it good. What one thing would you do, or within your power, that you can do that makes today great? And that sounds so simple, but if you kind of ask yourself that every day, and you will know what one thing or certain things that can make that day great, because the reality is, one day is going to be your last. So once you start living more like that, and again, all worry is future or past based, because if you think about the future, you're worrying about something that by the future, it hasn't actually happened. So it's an absolute waste. Thinking about the past of what's happened before, it's gone, you can't change it. So I think being present more daily is a huge step to fulfillment. And you know, you don't need, I think thinking you'll be happy when you have X, Y, and Z is, again, setting yourself up for a huge disappointment and delaying life. Like, I'm doing this and this and hustling and like, oh, whatever you're doing, not being the man or the woman that you want to be now because you haven't achieved this. That won't change you. It will just make you more of what you are now.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that. And as you were saying about happiness, just there at the end, I heard something recently. I don't know if you know RSD Tyler or RSD Owen from the personal development space. He's like, he runs a company called RSD Dynamics.
Okay,
Real Social Dynamics. Okay. I'll show you his stuff. But one thing that he said, which was really interesting, was people that say, I'll be happy when, and they write down, you know, when I make $1 million, or, you know, when I have that dream job. And I know this has been repeated by other people, but it's real because we've all done it. We've all said, I feel shitty today, but I'll be happy when. Like, so that makes it okay to feel shitty today. But then he said something that really changed my mind in terms of thinking about happiness. And he said, when you think that way, you're literally rewiring the nerves in your brain, your synapses, to be happy when you attain those things. So you're never going to be happy today. You're changing the pathway, you're changing your definition of happiness to always be in the future. The future never comes. We only live in the now. Mm-hmm. As you're talking about being present, like there is only present. There's no past, there's no future, it's only now.
Yeah.
And so if you're always trying to be happy in the future, it's never going to come. You're just chasing something that, you know, is never going to arrive. And then you get to the end, and that's when most people, I think, have regrets, because they think, I was chasing this whole thing and now I run out of time. Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think it was 90% of people have regrets. We saw that the 90% have regrets on their deathbed. So that's a huge statistic. So you've got to be proactive. And I think, you know, there's enough people who don't put enough thought into what they're putting into their bodies. Here and here, there's enough people who don't think about that. But then there's another section of people that you know, they think about that. But what you're putting into your mind daily is, I would say, as important, more important in my opinion, because that will affect that and will affect everything.
Yeah.
And what's the point of being in buff and great shape and very healthy if you're not mentally healthy? Because it all comes back to happiness and fulfillment. And I think the ability to be present more daily has directly impacted my happiness and fulfillment. Because I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to get to this place, then I'm going to be happy. No, it's more and more, the older I've got, it's about, I mean, as I say, making each day great. I think is, you know, I've had certain days, but I know if I do this one thing, and it's finished. Today was a great day, and it could have been a very challenging day.
Yeah.
You know, and challenges as well. Like, without any challenges, you know, the thought of, okay, I'm going to put my feet up on a beach, that might, for some people, you might last about a week, but then what? So without challenges, you know, you're not gonna progress. You're not gonna stretch yourself. And I do also think it's a trap for people who are got very ambitious and goal driven as well, to turn their life into a to-do list, and then that makes you less present.
Yeah.
And it's like the happiness of ticking things off, and then why am I doing this? Or, you know, so that it goes both ways. You just got, you know, and it's you know, it is the art, and it's through experimentation and finding what works for you as well.
Yeah. So how do you find that golden mean, that middle ground between you're an ambitious guy. You've done everything you've done to get to where you need to be, and I'm sure you've got plans to move even further. But then, how do you find the balance between being happy today and still awakening your alpha whilst pursuing the goals of thriving in the coming days and months?
Okay, yeah. So for ambitious people who are always trying to achieve something, as I say, it's very easy, because we've just talked about, you know, not putting all your happiness on achieving the outcome. And I think it's important, and again, you may have heard this lots of times, but maybe there's a reason people repeat certain things. The process. If going through your to-do list, or you feel like your life has turned into just a constant to-do list, and you're not enjoying the process, you know, why are you, I think it's important to, why are you doing certain things? I think more it's important to, what is the best use of your time, but over all that kills all of these to-do lists is a strong, compelling vision and why. Because something like getting a book out, the amount of work that takes, I think the stats are ridiculous. It won't be exactly the same, but it's like 90, it's something crazy, like 90% of people who start a book, it's 90 something, don't finish the book.
Wow.
Out of what is less than 10, way less than 10%, I think it's literally really low, who actually finish a book, out of that, 3% get it published in some shape or form. And so in terms of, because it's scary putting out there, I think writing a book, the main pleasurable part, and even that's hard, of a book writing scenario, is the first draft. You know, it's new, you're writing a book, you still have a lot of discipline to get that. Book is essentially, the core of it is done. That, realistically, if you're going to do it to a certain standard and properly, you need as much time at least it took you to write the book, to rework it, and you know,
wow. Yeah,
and that, let's not mess around, that's not particularly fun. And if you're driven by desperation, I've got to get this book out, same amount of work as opposed to I'm driven by inspiration. If you've got a strong vision, it will pull you towards it, and it's surprising what you can achieve if you attach something meaningful to it. If it's like, oh, I want to get this out to sell some books, there's always going to be an easy excuse or reason not to do it, because that's not that motivating. But when, I'm just going to use my example for it. So my oldest is 7. He's a big reader, and so me personally, in this book specifically, I approach this is the one book am ever going to write, and I think that's important. Like, what do you include in this book? And think of books down the line, stuff like that. No. If you've got a book or a business or something, a song, whatever it is, something you want to put out there, don't think of all these other things. It's like that focus. What is the one book? What's the most, you know, what's the best thing you could put out, and just go all in. Attached to that, then, this book, for me, I had the urgency of, we talked very briefly about mortality. I have a healthy urgency. I respect that I don't plan on dying, but I also know the reality. 20 of my interviews are featured, pieces of them in this book. And I was aware of it, I didn't want to focus on this, but if this takes me, say, from the writing process to publish 18 months, just based on average statistics, I didn't even look into it, but I had assumed, in theory, someone might not be here by the end of the process. And I had no idea, but that thought entered my head.
Yeah.
By the time I finished the first draft and was starting the reworking process. And I don't want to, you know, obviously get the book if there's interested, but one of the guys he knew was in the book is a very important chapter. And again, we spoke a lot. He's focused on a lot about mission and vision and mortality. And, you know, majority of people die at 25. They just don't get put in a box till they're 85. And he would rather live, you know, a short time and be present and doing what, you know, you only get one life. And he was a bomb disposal expert.
Wow.
Afghanistan, ridiculously dangerous stuff. Young guy, and you see it doing all this sort of stuff, you know, life or death scenarios when he was like 21. And what comes from that in terms of challenges, and you don't know how extraordinary you can become until you're put in extreme circumstances, whether that's busting a knee, whether that's, you know, detecting landmines. And he was swimming with his fiance, and, you know, it just went down, diving down, and just never came back up. So, and he was 28 years old, and you think about what he achieved, and he was being such a vision, such like, you know, an impact on the world, and he's gone. And if you can respect your own mortality and just have that urgency, so you start removing phrases like "I'm not ready" or "I'll do it tomorrow" when the time is right, and looking for this perfect time, because there is no perfect time. And that's more and more what I've just drive home. And with that action and making, you know, imperfect action as opposed to perfect inaction, momentum is huge. And I've had momentum, I've got momentum, then you get complacent, and I've lost momentum, and it's so hard to get it going again. So I think momentum in life and, you know, movement is life, I think that's huge. And I just think people need reality checks. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've all had someone close to us, you know, lost loved ones, or someone who you genuinely, you just feel in your gut they were taken way too soon. I think you should honour that person, or that person you're thinking about now, by living each day and making the most of your opportunity. And you have the chance of this, not that I have to do this. You don't have to do anything. You have the chance, you have the opportunity. And if you hate what you're doing now, you may think there's no way out, but you can always make the decision. If you're standing in crap now, you can either look at that crap, focus on it, talk about it, complain about it, or you look up and look at what is the route out, what can I do? And I think once you change your perspective like that, to a certain extent, I know it's crappy when you're in situations when you're in it, but you've got to mentally become the person you want to become now. Because as I say, if you can't make that mental shift, it's very hard, if not impossible, to get out of that situation and not think, oh, I will be mentally strong once I'm out of this, once I achieve it. You need to, whoever you want to become, or if you think, right, this is the person I want to be, I will be like that when I achieve this. No, you have to be like that now, and then you will achieve it. So become that man, that woman now.
Yeah, it's like Tim Story was saying, so I was just thinking about this as you were speaking, is prosper where you're planted. And that really hit home for me, because then it makes you realize that regardless of what insecurities you have now, or, you know, resources that you think you don't have, whatever it may be, or the connections that you hope to get one day, you've got to still take the action, because then eventually the action you take will help you become the character you see in your mind, and that's the connection I think we forget.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't yet got this, what can they expect in terms of breaking down the book? What do the chapters look like? What does each section cover?
So broken into three main sections with a little fourth one. So it's awareness, which it's all got to start with that. Action and ascension, and then the closing act is, you know, legacy, and talk about mortality, and, you know, what's the point of it all. In terms of the stories that are in there, they're not just a random, you know, there were some brilliant interviews but didn't quite fit the book, or, you know, there's two stories that are maybe the point or was too similar. So someone will inspire you in there, I'm confident of that, but, you know, I'm not telling you these are inspirational stories, these are stories, you know, that have inspired me, and that's what I can go on. So everything that's in there I stand by 100%. The best Tao's tactics, everything's in there that I've got from a variety of sources. I've consolidated it down and I've either used it myself or I believe in it, or there's options. It's definitely not a one size fits all. So if you can take one thing from this book and implement it in your life to improve it 1%, 2%,
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for you to read the book and think, oh, I feel inspired, and then I know 20, 30 ways I could improve my life.
Yeah.
I want you to implement one as you go, and if that's more valuable. I want it to have an impact, and that's how it's written. As I say, talking about what inspired me to it, in terms of, I hope to teach my sons day by day why I'm here, but I've also, I think I got to be open. You got to keep my mind open to the real possibility that I might not be here. I plan to do so much more, but again, the key thing from the book: plans do not accomplish anything. Plans are absolutely useless without implementation. So it's great you plan, but you've got to act. You can't plan for the future. You have that vision. If you know where you're going, you've got to have a strong, compelling Mount Olympus, your vision. So you know that every step you take daily is either stepping towards it or stepping away. You can't stand still. So this book, to my sons Dylan and Harrison, who one day will be men, if anything happens to me, they can pull on this, for the rest of their life and jump in. They can listen into the podcast when I'm interviewing inspiring people from, a variety of different subjects. That's legacy, and that's it's going to have an impact in someone's life. And I hope to do so much more, but as I say, I plan to do so much more, but I'm not naive enough to think I'm bulletproof.
Yeah, no, of course. But this is an amazing start to creating something that's going to last a lot longer than you, because as you said, you don't know when your own mortality comes to an end. So, is there anything, I'm curious to know, that you wish you would have included that you haven't, that's still in your mind that you want to share?
Well, this is another thing, and this is a reason I had a serious run at this book. And I think if you're writing a book and any product like that, if you leave it on the shelf too long, like writing a book over 2, 3, 4 years, unless you are literally stagnant, you're going to be a different person by the time you get to the end of it. So I hope this makes you panic. I had urgency with this. If this took longer than it did, and this took longer than I wanted, and I was going at it, and that deadline's where my publishers and people tell me, do you know how long this should take? I'm like, yeah, I get it. I know it's pushing it, but I want to push it and set these deadlines, and I know it will still take longer. But without them deadlines, I think it's important to have an important, like, what you are doing. You'll work out the details later. If you know all the information, you're less likely to do something. You can, you learn being in the arena.
Yes.
You don't read about writing a book for years and years. You write a book, and you will find out the pain and what's going through and what's it's the only way is being in the arena. I think that's important. Do not be a critic on the sideline. I have utmost respect for the people who are in the arena and not the armchair critics, because even if you're having a shocker, if you're in the arena, I've got more respect from you than someone who's not making any mistakes. And in terms of what I'm happy to say, everything is in there. I have no regrets. But link to the thing, I'm changing all the time in terms of, if someone says to you, oh, a year down the line, oh, you've changed. That society sees that almost like negative connotations. And my point is, if you haven't changed in a year, what have you been doing? Like, if someone says comparing you now to your school age version, which seems to be a thing, and saying like, oh, you're different from when you was at school. Well, if I say you're the same as when you was at school, that's, in my mind, that's an absolute insult. It means you've done jack for like however long it is. So I think there's always going to be something you might have changed or you're going to evolve, but as it stands, for me, it's perfectly imperfect. Your message, something in there that you might hate or you might think, I wouldn't have put it like that, someone else will love.
Yeah.
So I think you've just got to be true to yourself. And the publishers even try to change little words. And I'm just like, got to be confident enough to know what you stand for and what you are willing and not willing to sacrifice, just as important. And I'm like, I get that might be better in English. I don't speak like that. So I think it's important, and it just comes from staying at it. Consistency is I'll take the 1% improvements day on day over these big big things that make social media, and then you go, what happens now? So I think it's my wife. When I had the crash and stuff, I used to be much more like up on cloud 9 and then drop like a rock. I still get very excited, but I'm definitely more even keen and kill even. And I think it's important when you put anything out there, and there's that fear factor as well. You're never as bad as they say. You're never as good as they say. That's always important to remember. When someone's blowing smoke up your ass, you're not that. You're never as good as they say. But then on the flip side, you're never as bad as they say. So I think whatever you put out, if you really put your stamp on it, you're going to get people who don't. It's not their cup of tea, but that's fine. Variety is the spice of life. If everyone liked this and what we're talking about now, it's not going to have an impact. It's not going to have, because it's if you try and speak to everyone, you're talking to no one. So.
Yeah, I always see. So I like what you said there, because the way I see it is, I was reading this blog a few years ago, and this guy was saying that I don't market my blog purposely, because if you're supposed to find it, you will. It's simple as that. And I think it's the same with this message. If it hits home with people and they want to buy this book, they want to awaken their alpha and make some progress in this life, then they'll naturally go out and get it. So you guys are listening and watching this. You may not have met Adam before, or you might just be listening to me for the first time. But if you actually want to move to the next level of your life and do something, buy the book and find out for yourself. Don't try and wait for someone else to tell you if it's good or not, or wait for reviews on Amazon. Go out and check it out for yourself, because it might be the best thing you've read, might be the worst thing you've read, but you don't know unless you go and pick it up. So, most books, most videos, most resources, most of it, you're not going to remember the full 700,000, 200,000 words you've read. It will be that one sentence, that golden nugget. But until you take the effort to go out and buy it and indulge the time and effort that you need to read and research it, you won't find that one line that's going to change your life, or that one phrase, or that one sentence, whatever it may be. So
when you're saying that, in terms of, there are no shortcuts to success, but you can learn. Some people are doing the work. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. For example, in this scenario, in terms of being efficient with your time, I don't even want to count up the hours, but if you're talking about 300 plus episodes, I know how long it takes to do an episode, edit, and all that stuff around it. So this is like in the front of the books. John Blake's an Australian, really inspirational guy. This is what he says. Adam has spent the best part of the last 5 years interviewing people at the top of their game with one simple goal: to code success. Week in, week out, Adam has not only scoured the earth looking for the most successful men, he's interviewed them. After 300 episodes, the patterns and common denominators are now captured in one place, and you're going to love the result. No matter what you are facing in life, be it problem or question, this book is bound to contain the answer or solution. A must-read for the modern male who wants to operate at their best. And in terms of people that get the questions, is this just for men? I think it's important to have one, when you're writing for someone, like writing a book or anything like that, is to have one person in mind. Stories are universal. Tactics to thrive, they are universal in certain nature. I focus in on what I know, and from my experience, I'm not a woman. So in terms of what can have the most impact, we have women, and we're getting great reviews from women who are reading this. In terms of this Awakening Your Alpha attracts them. They're interested to understand the men in life better, or they getting it for a gift for someone. Yeah. Thinking, they'd really like that. Now a little cheeky look at themselves, and it's so this is open to all. And in terms of like information, and I think that another Australian says in the book, if you ever say, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to take it to the next level, Australians can be quite blunt, but basically bullshit. Information is out there. I can't afford to get information. Buy a book. Look on the internet. Yeah. That is not a legitimate excuse nowadays. Get off your ass. Do something. It may work, it may not, but you will learn from the experience. The information is out there, so follow someone or something that you relate to, that resonates, and get stuck in. I think the action and thinking, it's just, I can't emphasize it enough. Small daily actions, that's what you do. If you, up to this point, have felt a bit crappy about yourself and what you're doing, and just feeling like you're not living to your full potential, just make the decision now, when the day you read the book or listen to this podcast, from this point on, the simple fact, anything that's important to you, do not do less than excellent in stuff that's important to you. just make that decision. Whether it takes you longer to do things, that's fine. But it's a lot of the principles here are around character and what you are willing and not willing to sacrifice. Your rules, your code, not my code. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're going to decide for yourself, and I think that's important. I sometimes see too many cult-like warrior type things that are like chanting, "This is what you do." And I think it's important to put your individual stamp on it, and I wanted to make that very clear. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and I think that's important. And once you embrace this way of life, this pursuit, you can take anything on, and you can take it in any direction you want, and you can go as high as you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny you read something out, because before I wrap up, I always ask people three questions. And before I was going to ask that, I was gonna say to you, is there something you'd like to read out from the book?
Ooh,
you did.
That was a testimonial. Oh man. Oh,
you can read something else if you want to read something else.
Let's see if we're still running. I'm gonna kind of just pick into a section, because it's nice whenever you just drop in a bit and you just love whatever you. I mean, I'm a big fan of quotes, and that gets me fired up.
Yeah, same.
So let's just have a little look. And there's 31 action boxes in the book as you go, because I want you to just like crack straight on. Let's have a little look what we got.
And whilst you're looking for that, just to speak to the females that are listening, because I do have female listeners who DM me, and I speak to them regularly to help them with what's going on with them. If you guys are watching, you know who you are. As Adam was saying, becoming an alpha or awakening your alpha, it's not just a male terminology, it's a way of life. And you've got your own alpha within you, and so I encourage you to go and pick up the book and find out how he's condensed knowledge from people around the world over the course of 5 years. He's put in a book that you can read within the space of a week, even less than that if you want to put the real time and effort in. You could do it in 5 days, 3 days. So would you rather take 5 years to learn what he's learned, or just pick up a book for however much it is, £10-20 or $10-20? It doesn't matter, because he's now condensed 5 years of your life and put it into a few hundred pages.
It's very readable. A lady in the test group, I'd given him a month to read it. She was last into the group, and I said, "Oh, you're right, you got plenty to catch up." She smashed through it in a weekend.
Wow. Like, there you go then.
I was like, gee. So I mean, I just like pulled to this page, and I can just put it. I just want to finish with this then. So, in life, change is coming. You can either panic, complain about it, or embrace the changes, challenges, and opportunities each season brings. Always focusing on what you can't do is a surefire way to miss out on what you can do. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. And that's Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor, the last little quote in
Marcus
there.
Aurelius.
But yeah, I mean, it's stuff that inspires me. As I say, what I was surprised, bearing in mind how much I've stared at versions of this for the last 18 months, I thought I'd kind of be like, oh, get away from me.
Yeah.
But whenever I pick it up and like that, I'm like, I get sucked in, which is a good sign. And I wanted it,
definitely.
Regardless. I think whatever, going off again, but don't worry about impressing other people. I think that's attaching again external things. So I'm like, oh, am I going to be happy? Oh, you like it? Yes. Okay, I'm happy. Oh, you don't like it? I'm sad now. Do something that you respect yourself for. What would you have to do to respect yourself? Do that. If you go from that point and stop doing stuff that you don't respect yourself for.
Yeah, you know what? As you were talking, it's interesting you say that. This is a bit of a weird analogy, but you don't put the book out with the intention of, I want a million people to love me or hate me, whatever it is. You do it with the intention of, if this can touch one person's life, and not just that, but your own sense of fulfillment, that okay, now I have something that's gonna last longer than I'm here. At least I would anyway.
It's
legacy,
if I
write a book, I'm not gonna really care about, I hope a million people like it and I've got to check the comments every day and reviews. For me, I'm now coming to a place of, I'm gonna put it out there. I might put out more books, I may not, it doesn't matter, but regardless, I'm going to go away now with the fulfillment that I've left something in the world for people to read, my family, my kids, whatever, and it's going to inspire someone. And as you were talking, I was thinking, we all make, from the age that we're really young to the day we die, we're always meeting new people. You don't meet someone with the intention of making him or her your only friend, and thinking, oh, because he's agreed to be my friend or she's agreed to be my friend, maybe no one else will like me, so I'm just going to stick to this person. You speak to everyone hoping that you can expand your network. Some people you get on with, some people you don't. Some people are acquaintances, some people become your best friend. But that doesn't stop you from speaking to people.
No.
And so the same way with the book, you know, put your thoughts, feelings, and actions out there, and whoever resonates will. And if they don't, they won't. At least you know you have that sense of fulfillment. You've put yourself out there.
So saying anyone does, if you know, like you just said there, I was just thinking in terms of like, if like 100 people, 99 people couldn't stand it, and one person's inspired. Let's suppose that you just inspired one person. You know, that's important to me. And in terms of like the season of your life and how this can just keep putting positivity out there. Talking about one of my, I think probably the best for me, the best speaker on the planet, E.T., the hip hop preacher.
Yeah, definitely.
Love that guy. 5 years ago, I met him. He gave me his copy of his new book at that time, Greatness Is Upon You.
Yeah.
He signed it for me. That was just before I started. I'm like, oh, this is because just before I started the podcast, and then what ultimately I knew was going to be a book. And I couldn't get him on my podcast, couldn't connect with him, he's just blown up. Then I literally finished this book. I didn't know he was speaking at the event. And again, it's very hard to get. I bumped into him completely random, 5 years almost to the day. We had a 2-minute conversation, and he asked me, can I sign the book for him? And I handed him the book, and I was like, and he's coming on the podcast.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
wow, man.
There's been each one of things like that. The moment my boys opened the book and my oldest read, and I just realised for the first time that this book is dedicated to him, his face, I visioned that as my kind of like that was my vision for like the whole period when it's really struggling to get this done, and it was 10 times better. It's like moments like that's what you do stuff, and that you have your own personal moments, and it's that if one person does something off the back of one thing that was in here, and I don't care if it's someone, an interview or who said it in there, if they do something that has a positive impact on the world and their life, man, that's gonna be, I'm just excited at the potential of that. There's no guarantees, but the potential that it's out there and it can have that impact. And it's human nature, if you get 99 positive things and someone comes in and tells you what they think and in a negative way, and they're not unfortunately, it's human nature to focus on that. And that's what you've got to be if you put anything out there, you're going to get haters, and that's just part and parcel of it. If you don't, in some ways, maybe you haven't been true to yourself enough or put enough of your opinion out there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
we can talk all night.
I was gonna say.
I'm worried the recorder stopped. But
So we'll go into the final few questions. Yeah, as you said, there's so much.
Let me just double check on that.
Yeah, go on.
It's still going.
Awesome. Let's wrap
Nice,
this up. That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah,
I'm so glad because
So-
that was.
Yeah.
I'm loving this, man.
Yeah, so the final few questions I always ask everyone is, first off, with everything you've gone through and everything you know now, what would you tell, if anything, the 18-year-old Adam?
Back yourself. If you can't back yourself, how can you expect anyone else to have faith in you? It's like that, looking for external validation. You need to back yourself more, and it's that boldness begets boldness. You do one little action that leads to it, and you get a better result. You make that bold decision, then you stretch yourself. So I think back yourself. I think most times people sell themselves short, know your worth, but I think ultimately it comes down to, I think it was again John Blake who said in here, that was what, I asked guests for a quote, and he was just back yourself, and I just, so simple and powerful, but I just think it's a good message. Don't let other people put their limitations on you. Quick, very story to sum up. I loved basketball when I was younger.
So did
I was obsessed.
Yeah.
I was good, and I had a ceiling that I put on myself that I didn't even realise because I'm a kid. Basically, everyone said to me, "Oh, you're a basketball player. You're a bit short. You're too short to be a basketball player." From when I was young, and these are people who they kind of had my best interest at heart in theory, and I'm just I didn't question it because I'm a young kid, so I didn't even think. So I had no vision, no future in that mentally because I was too short to be a basketball player. And knowing what I know now, I could, Muggsy Bogues, 5'3", getting in the NBA. the amount of limitation put on him, and you turned his perceived weaknesses into strengths. And in terms of, it's a weird thing to have a regret about. That's kind of my only regret, is that I let myself buy into other people's stories. But it's tough because you're a kid then. But but the flip side, if I'd have gone flat out and trying to really pursue that, maybe I wouldn't still. I don't pole vault anymore because my knee's screwed, and that's not something I do. And it was I was doing that at a high level. Basketball I played weekly, and that's not the best for my knee. I love it because I've never overdone it and turned it into that sort of thing. I've just had a passion for it, and I absolutely love it, and it's got longevity for me because it never went past, because it was always, this is a fun pastime. So there's positives in that now. If I had gone down the route of I'm going to be a basketball player and not burn myself out, but maybe once, as a lot of athletes do when they go so intense in one thing, when they're finished, they kind of finish. They've done that. So, and I probably would have been playing basketball now. So, but that's the one thing. I'm talking about limitations, and just be very careful that the story or the beliefs that you hold as true without questioning them, because beliefs are just stories, and your stories are either helping you or they're hindering you. And I think it's important to they are stories, and I think it's important to question yourself and question stories that you hold as gospel, as this is the truth. Question them. I think that's an important exercise to do. And there's an exercise in the book specifically. That's what I'd like to do, because the number one limitation is on you is you, and it really comes down to that. I do think you can do anything, you can't do everything, and that's where it comes to kind of, not necessarily going, this is exactly what I'm going to do, but knowing the direction or knowing things you don't like. That's just as useful, because you can kind of go in a different direction. And then you don't have to know it all, but just head in. Don't wait till you know it all, because then you're standing still. Start moving in that direction and have the vision. But the path, there's loads of people. The paths to success will never look exactly as you imagine. And I think it's important to have your vision, but have your peripheral there. Don't be tunnel vision and not notice the opportunities that may loop around, but they will get you there. I think that's really important to just go out on the hunt. Don't wait for your opportunities. You've got to go get it, and then when you get your opportunities, go on the hunt within your opportunity. Make the most of that opportunity, because again, some people go on the hunt, get the opportunity. Yes, I've got the opportunity. You've got to keep that same attitude, and that's it's important. But once this becomes like your default mode, it's not like it's not an effort, but it's how you are, and I think that's important to develop your principles, your mission, your code, what you do and what you won't do, and then it's life becomes simpler. Any opportunity or options that come to you, does it align with your mission? Does it fall inside of what you will and won't sacrifice? Is it in line with your morals, your code? Yes, do it. No, don't do it. Life becomes a lot simpler.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it reminds me of something a good friend of mine told me, which has really stuck with me, was everything works, but not everything is for you. And that really going through, as you were saying, hunting down your opportunity, you pursue certain things just to realize that they're not for you. So you shouldn't get disheartened the fact that they don't work, because they're helping you define what actually does. So just going into the second question then is, if there's anything you could write in a sentence that's going to be buried in a time capsule for generations from now to dig up and read what Adam's written, what would you want that message to be?
Well, all what I just said, but blind time capsule. Okay, I'm going to give this a little bit of thought here.
Go for it.
Time
Take
capsule.
as much time as you want.
Let me think. Time capsule. 20 years, something different. Maybe this that I haven't said. Time capsule 20 years from now. Okay. Start where you are. You are ready now. And on the flip side, if you are ready, if you wait till you're ready, you're too late. I think it's important to do things, and I don't want to say stuff like, because it's just been overused about like fear and that sort of stuff, but you need to do stuff that does challenge you. I think the quality of your life is directly linked to your ability to have potentially tough conversations, and ask yourself, the quality of your questions dictates the quality of your life. And these don't have to be questions that you're asking people or having people ask you. Ask yourself some questions. There's questions in the book, and there's not going to be someone over your shoulder. These are internal questions.
Yeah.
And some will be maybe quite easy to you, and others are going to be like, oh, they're hard. And maybe that's an indicator of something you should put a little bit more work into. Not think, oh, I can't, I'll skip that one.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an indicator of maybe where there's the biggest potential for growth.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's along them lines. That's what I'd say. But yeah, it's as I say, just you got to stick with it and just don't. Everyone, I think, in terms of the one size doesn't fit all. If you're going into reading this book, and this is one key thing, I don't want to go down there. This is, there's people in here listening to this who need to take it easy. They need to chill out a bit. They need to not be so hard on themselves, not beat themselves up, have negative self-talk, just batter themselves down if they have like an off day. Everyone has an off day. Just get back on it and don't beat yourself up about it. It's not an issue. Then there's other people listen to this who think, oh yeah, I listen to that. No, don't listen to that advice. You need to get the urgency and stop chilling out and thinking you've got so long and always justifying why you haven't done anything, and you'll get round to it. And there's always reasons. You can have reasons, or you can have excuses, or you can have results. There's always you can't have both. So that's where the balancing act.
Yeah.
That's where the power of an individual attention or a coach, or just having that mindfulness and working on yourself. So I think it's important not to cherry pick. If you want to hear take it easy, you could find some of that in there. We talk about stillness. We've got like some meditation master in there. Give you mindfulness practice. But you may have that nailed. You may be almost horizontal half the time. You may just have, for some reason, think you've got years and years and years. Cole Hatter at his event, he's in here. He thought he had 20, 30, 40, 50 years to be serious, to have an impact. That is until his both, there's three of them, both his 21-year-old best friends die within 2 months in accidents he was in personally with them. That gives you a kick up the arse. Your age has nothing to do with when your time is up.
Yeah.
It's a loose guide if everything goes perfect, and nothing goes perfect. So and you can take that as it's perfectly imperfect. It is what it is. This is life, So you could think about how you want it, how it should be, or just this is where you are now, is where you are meant to be based on your actions, what you've done to this point. And again, okay, you can focus on, this is not my fault, this is not my fault. Take responsibility for everything, the good and the bad, and then you can do something about it.
Yeah.
I get someone may have done something to you, or like stuff may have happened that how can that be? How can I? You always have a piece to take, and also it's not about the blame game. It's about getting better, and you have to take responsibility for everything, and it's your life. Don't. If someone's done something crappy to you, from this point on, don't give it any power. Don't give it any fuel. I think responsibility, claiming your life, and just leading your life and rising up. It's what I'm very passionate about, and it's not easy. But the whole point is, this is your life, and it's like, if it's easy, is it worth doing? What's the point? And so we could talk about this all night, but if this has inspired you in the slightest, you can listen to the podcast for hours and hours. There's like 300 plus episodes. I wouldn't suggest going in and binge listening. You can book ayalpha.com/book. There's bonuses up until the launch October 3rd. So depending on when you listen to it, please jump it there. The bonuses will be there till the launch, guaranteed. A few days after, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Again, don't think too far. This is like, I may not be here by that time. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
So my whole point is, if this has struck a chord for you, you can go and grab this now. And if you really didn't like it, let me know about that. But again, I would invest your energy in positive things. So if you didn't like it, do not waste your energy on giving me a negative review. You can let me know if you want, but I would, again, it comes down to complaining. If you don't write a review, I would take that as you're not a fan. It wasn't your cup of tea. But if something inspired you, reach out and let me know what had an impact and what you're going to do with it. What are you going to do? Because that's the important thing. Not what I've done, not what you've done, not necessarily what you like. What had an impact with you, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, I love it, and I think you've shared, where people can find you in terms of your book and Instagram, social media.
Yeah,
etc.
Adam Lewis Walker, Instagram, Facebook, Awaken Your Alpha. If you put them two things in, if you're thinking, is this for me? If you go to my TEDx talk, like a 15-minute talk about awakening your alpha, you watch that, and rightly so, if you watch that and you think, nah, perfect. Because that is kind of my core, my fundamental. If you kind of got it a bit here, but if you watch that and I like that, the book is more of that with stories from absolute legends that have inspired me.
I love it. No, so just to wrap up with the final question, I think we've touched it in a few different places here, but just for them to hear it in one sort of place, in one final question. You're coming to the end of your life. Let's put a random number on it, 90, 95. You're looking back at your life. What's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
Strong sons who make an impact on the world. That's, I think, becoming a father or mother is a game changer. I think in terms of people look at certain dates like pre-post, for me, pre-kids, post-kids, mental shift, whether I like it or not, and I like it. And I think that when it comes back to legacy, and I write a bit about it in the book towards the end as well. I think that's huge. I think that's, if you're looking at what can you leave, because in terms of the ripple effect, much like they're watching and you're having an influence on people around you, specifically your family, whether you like it or not, it's within your choice and your control. You decide whether that's a good impact or a bad impact.
Yeah.
So you walking down the street, your ripple effect is happening, whether you're aware of it or whether you give a monkeys, it's happening. You smile at someone, they may think you're insane, but once again, if you smile at someone, that then person, they smile back. They maybe smile at the next person. There's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
If you do not, I'm from Crawley in South England, you likely would, you may get the opposite. So you may get that negative stare, like I don't know what you've done to piss them off, but then you're less likely. It does have an impact. You might, if you let it get, you're less likely. Oh well, someone's just stared at you. That can have a negative effect if you let it, or you can just wash it off. So I think you have an impact wherever you go. For something like your family, if you have an impact, a positive impact, for example, and you can't just say it. That's through your actions over a long, as we're talking about consistency. And then if you build strong sons or daughters, what's the legacy from that? It just goes on and on and on. And that's why it's so tough when you've had, I was lucky I don't believe in luck, but there's genetics. Where you were born, your parents, you can't choose that. You can overcome it, so don't let it be an excuse, but it is, I understand the cycle of when someone's had an abusive parent or a really crappy initially upbringing to then the cycle to continue. I have so much respect from people who come from that and then they, had that interrupt and they've broken that pattern and then they're coming down, as I say, building strong sons and daughters, because that stuff can go on for generations. If you let it, because it's almost like an excuse. This happened to me. I have no example, I have no role model.
Yeah.
You can't choose your family, but you can choose your role models. So if you're in that environment, it's tough, but you still have a choice. And I think that's important. And be very careful and protective of your environment. Even if your physical environment is crappy right now, and there's things you cannot physically move away from, your mental environment is within your control.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would just stick with it, and it's you can go as far as you want. And it inspires me. There's going to be people who've come from better backgrounds than me. What is a better background? There's people who come from way more struggle than me. You've got what you've got. That's not irrelevant, but don't let that hold you back.
Yeah.
Don't let, he done that because it's okay for him. I've got this, or she's done that because it's okay. She hasn't got my problems. I think it's Will Smith. I might have put a quote in the book. No one has a unique problem. Any problem you've got or had, someone has had it before and they've overcome it. In that sense, you are not a unique snowflake.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
everyone is an individual, but and I think you can find examples in history. Again, it's probably too many, so it might just wash over generic, of someone who's had not your situation, but they've had a worse situation and they've gone on and just absolutely fried.
Exactly, yeah, and that helps you keep perspective. That's why I like to learn about history and just read people's quotes, because it shows you about what else has gone on outside of your own realm and outside of your own time zone. That shows you that if they've gone through that, then it means that I can go through this. It puts a big perspective and a magnifying glass of, you know, how important and how bad your problem actually isn't. So, yeah.
In terms of cycles, I mean, so many people stop on the, like, whatever the rungs of success are, or whatever. Success is a bit generic, like happiness, fulfillment of that breakthrough. So many of us go to 9 out of 10 steps, and then just give up and go back to the bottom and just go again, and then you just got to. We're talking a lot about breakthroughs, and I think you've got to push through, and it is that, you know, again, probably used too much, you know, that the day is darkest just before the dawn, and it's just having that consistency. Like I think someone else said, and it's having that perspective when you're in the crap, just think, you know, wow, this is going to give your life some. You don't go seeking out these adverse situations, because they will come, but it just makes the big difference between post-accident and my life before and now after, and completely different identity, is I'm so much more grateful, and my life has so much more flavour, because before, if you've had success and not had big adversity, what is your comparison? Like, it's that natural thing. There is no light without dark. Like, where's your comparison? And that's where you can get just stagnant and just, you know, you can just not appreciate what you've got. And so I just, I think that's important. And if that sort of adversity gives you is that perspective to appreciate what you've got, then hey, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. I think we can go on for another few hours, but no, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. It's been a pleasure, man. So.